Hello, my name is Joanna Preston. Thank you for joining me today for a discussion of agricultural research and innovation in Canada. Here's a little bit about my background. I'm an Associate Director of Licensing with the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. I've been with the University of Alberta for just over 20 years. I work in the area of life sciences, which encompasses both health and agriculture. Prior to joining the University of Alberta, I worked in biomanufacturing in the Edmonton area for a small local company and as part of a publicly funded contract research organization supporting health for R&D for health and agricultural companies. Most of you are probably aware that Canada is not the warmest country. Our landmass stretches north up to the Arctic Circle, and it can be very cold here, especially in the winter. This map shows the plant hardiness zones in Canada to give you an idea. Canada is very diverse, with warmer coastal areas, vast dry prairies in the central region, fertile, relatively warm areas in the southeast, and harsh Arctic tundra to the north. This map provides a basic outline of the principal types of agriculture across Canada. You can see the central prairie region, including Alberta, where I am located. It produces mainly beef, pork, and grain crops, which includes oilseeds. Canola is a big area of focus for Western Canada. The provinces in the east and west produce more dairy, along with fruits and vegetables. In the far north, wild game, berry crops, and greenhouse crops are more prevalent. This map doesn't show fisheries and aquaculture, which are also highly significant on the coasts. This, of course, doesn't provide a complete picture of agricultural output in Canada, as there is significant variety within each region as well. As you can see, agriculture and agri-food is a significant part of the Canadian economy. It constitutes 1/9 of our labor force, and we produce significant exports. Agri-Food Canada states that in 2021, Canada was the 5th largest exporter of agri-food and seafood in the world. According to the Agri-Food Trade Alliance, Canada exports half our beef, 70% of our soybeans, 75% of our wheat, 90% of our canola, and 95% of our pulses. Canada has substantial agricultural assets. We obviously have a lot of space, although not all of it is suitable for high-intensity agriculture. We have strong access to international markets. We have a strong connection to preserving and protecting both our cultivated lands and our wilderness. We have built a reputation as a trusted supplier of safe food. And as I will discuss today, we have created a system of research and development infrastructure to support Canadian agriculture growth. Like other countries, Canada also faces a number of challenges with respect to our agriculture industry, particularly in the area of sustainability. Here are some of the issues we are currently trying to address. Obviously, our cold climate with short growing season is an important challenge. However, like other countries, we are also struggling with changing weather patterns and climate change. We have experienced heat domes causing droughts, extensive wildfires, as well as severe flooding. All of these significantly impact agri-food output. We are facing skilled labor shortages in agriculture and agri-food, especially post-pandemic. We are experiencing what is being called a retirement cliff, with most farmers over the age of 55 currently. Emerging animal and plant pathogens and antimicrobial resistance impact both domestic crops and animals, as well as our wildlife. We have seen declines in biodiversity in natural populations that directly impact food supply. For example, the Atlantic cod fishery has been significantly impacted by declining populations. The global agri-food industry has been impacted by rising fuel costs. Although much of Canada's population is concentrated fairly close to our southern border, food production is relatively dispersed and transportation can be a challenge. Another issue related to population distribution is lack of remote access to reliable internet. This can impede awareness and adoption of new technologies and can hamper access to new markets. Finally, Canada has active debate over many political and socioeconomic matters related to agriculture and agri-food. These include Indigenous rights in land use and traditional industries, and competing interests from the energy and agricultural sectors, among other issues. Although primary agriculture may be regarded as having a traditional approach, Canadians in agriculture and agri-food appear to be adopting innovative technologies. According to a 2017 report by the Agricultural Institute of Canada, the cost-benefit ratio for agricultural research ranges from 10:1 to 20:1, and the Canadian agricultural sector recognizes this. Nearly half of Canadian farms adopted innovation back in 2013, with large farms more likely to take on new technologies. According to a 2019 report by RBC, which is a major Canadian bank, more than 80% of producers under the age of 40 use technology. Our farmers and agricultural workers are more educated today, with nearly half having degrees, and the number of agricultural post-secondary graduates growing in Canada at a rate of 3.9% annually. Many Canadian institutions have highly ranked agricultural undergraduate and graduate programs, including my own home institution, the University of Alberta. Attracting these younger groups and underrepresented groups to agriculture and agri-food is a key challenge in Canada. Canada provides significant R&D investment into agriculture and agri-food. As I mentioned before, Canada is home to many institutions that conduct agricultural research. I was able to identify 140 of these and 5,000 or more researchers affiliated with agriculture and agri-food. These numbers were drawn from a wonderful resource called Cognit, a listing of available Canadian research capabilities and infrastructure. For those of you looking for collaboration opportunities, cognit.ca is a great place to start. Canadian agri-food researchers make significant contributions to scientific literature with 4.7% of global scientific papers in agriculture emerging from Canada, in contrast to our population, which is 0.5% of the world's population. Canadian agricultural researchers receive investment from both public and private sources. I researched through Cognit as well as other innovation listings to assemble a list of the primary areas of technologies emerging from the Canadian agricultural and agri-food sector. Most of this innovation is highly cross-disciplinary, coming from applications of biotechnology, engineering, and artificial intelligence. First, many Canadian breeders focus on improved plant varieties using traditional plant breeding as well as transgenics. My institution, the University of Alberta, has extensive breeding programs for wheat and oilseeds such as canola. Crop improvement technologies can include advanced point of detection devices for animal and plant pathogens, livestock genetics, as well as for traceability and quality assurance in food processing. Precision agriculture technologies use artificial intelligence and Internet of Things equipment monitoring and controls. Autonomous vehicle research is one specific example, and others include remote monitoring of livestock health and crop maturity. Plant-derived compounds are increasingly used in nutritional and cosmetic products, but Canadian researchers are also developing materials for use in biofuels, waste management, carbon capture, and energy storage. Aquaculture technology is expanding in Canada in both our coastal areas for salmon and shellfish, as well as inland fisheries with applications to trout and freshwater shellfish. Emerging technologies for water purity, waste management, and energy reduction are facilitating growth in these areas. The next two slides provide an overview of the many Canadian funding sources for agricultural and agri-food research and development. Funding comes from our federal as well as provincial governments. There are also a number of national and regional networks and agencies with specific mandates for research and innovation. These lists may provide a starting point for those of you seeking to adopt innovative technologies or looking for collaboration partners. If any of you are actively sourcing innovation or collaboration opportunities, I recommend again cognit.ca or reach out to the technology transfer or research offices of the Canadian universities and colleges. Canadian researchers and their institutions are very open to international collaboration opportunities, and funding for these collaborations may be available through the channels I've listed. For example, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada is one of the primary Canadian federal funding sources. They have recently established a living laboratories network and have research dedicated to socioeconomic issues in adopting innovation. Some of the other federal funding sources and organizations each have their specific focus areas, such as Protein Industry Canada, the Canadian Agri-Food Automation and Intelligence Network, and the Natural Products Canada Innovation Cluster. Many of them will have their own specific lists of technologies and startup companies that have emerged from their funding. Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories. Many of these also have their own dedicated funding agencies for agricultural research and innovation. Alberta Innovates is one provincial entity that I am very familiar with from my own province. Their Agri-Food Innovation Program provides funding to academic researchers as well as to companies with intent to increase productivity, reduce inputs, lower emissions, and sustainably produce more with less. The Agri-Food Innovation Program helps accelerate the research and innovation pathway through investment in data and digital solutions, autonomous systems, agricultural biology, food processing innovation, and prion research. There are equivalents to Alberta Innovates in many other Canadian provinces. Notably, there are Canadian venture capital organizations that specifically fund agriculture and agri-food. Two examples here are Carrot Ventures and Ag Capital Canada. I also identified Radar, a producer-oriented group, which aims to connect producers to scientists, educational institutions, and private industry to make Alberta agriculture as profitable and as sustainable as possible. Intellectual property is my primary area of focus at the University of Alberta. The Canadian Intellectual Property Office handles registrations of Canadian IP rights, including patents, trademarks, and copyright. Just over 10 years ago, Canada created a priority system for examining green technology patents, which has had some benefit to ag-related technologies. One distinction in Canada is that higher life forms are not considered patentable subject matter, although the cells of those higher life forms may be patentable. Plant breeders' rights are used to protect new plant varieties. Registration is handled by the Canada Food Inspection Agency and requires proof of novelty, which relies on demonstrations and field trials. The protection lasts for 20 years for most plant varieties. The rights are national, although we are a member of the Union for Protection of New Varieties of Plants and have been that since 1991. In Canada, we have something called farmer's privilege, which allows farmers to save seeds for replanting on their own farm. However, these are subject to patent rights. There is a famous case that some of you may have heard of, Schmeiser versus Monsanto. A very brief summary of what is a very complex case shows that Monsanto prevailed in their case against Mr. Schmeiser on the basis that their patent rights to Roundup Ready technology superseded the farmer's inherent right to use his own property, which in this case was saved seed. Schmeiser, however, was not required to pay a royalty to Monsanto for using the seed because he did not actually spray his crop with Roundup. So it was kind of a wash. A search of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency database shows that Canadian university and government labs generate significant numbers of new plant varieties. The University of Alberta is specifically noted for its new canola and wheat through our breeding programs, as I mentioned, and other Canadian institutions such as University of Guelph and University of Saskatchewan and Manitoba also make significant contributions to registering new plant varieties each year. The Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada researchers make an even greater contribution, having registered 914 new varieties since the system was adopted. As plant varieties emerge that are able to tolerate our climate, Canadian farmers try out new crops. The chart on the right shows alternative crops that are being adopted, with a large increase in spelt, quinoa, and particularly in hemp, which sort of coincides with the legalization of cannabis crops in Canada. Canadian universities and colleges are very open to licensing innovations to third parties, both domestically and internationally. You should be aware that Canadian universities have a variety of different IP policies on IP ownership that might impact their licensing practices. Smaller colleges may be new to industry interactions and may lack infrastructure for collaborations and legal agreements. However, the large institutions nearby and other regional innovation support agencies are usually willing to advise and assist in those cases. In general, the process starts with a collaboration that can lead to joint testing and eventually to licensing of new technologies for commercial use. Canadian universities and their researchers start many new companies, including in the agri-food space. Collaboration and partnership directly with those spin-offs is also possible. With apologies to the many wonderful emerging companies in agri-food in other Canadian provinces, I wanted to provide a list of some of the promising small Western Canadian companies to watch in the agri-food space. This slide shows award-winning startups from British Columbia in the aquaculture sector that I thought represented the diverse areas of cross-disciplinary technologies impacting agricultural sustainability. The first one, Industrial Plankton, is a company that works in biotechnology. They create bioreactors for algae cultures. Poseidon Ocean Systems focuses on fuel efficiency in the aquaculture industry. This fish Inc. uses Internet of Fish technology for traceability and quality management, and Icy Waters Arctic Char is adopting protocols aimed at a zero waste strategy. I also wanted to mention some Edmonton area companies that operate in the high-tech agricultural space. SiaPro uses University of Alberta extraction technology to produce high-value compounds from oats used in nutritional and personal care products. Champion Pet Foods uses novel food production processes and formulations which are distributed to over 100 countries. Animal Infometrics uses infrared remote monitoring to keep track of livestock health in herds. Forge Hydrocarbons Corporation is currently constructing a facility in Ontario, but was formed based on renewable fuel technology developed at the University of Alberta. It converts waste fats from food sources into fuels. And finally, Delta Genomics utilizes genetic detection and bioinformatics for livestock trait analysis. It was acquired by international company Neogen in 2019. These are just a few examples of the successful translation of Canadian ag bioresearch into commercial use. As I mentioned before, for those of you seeking agriculture innovations or collaboration opportunities, cognit.ca can be a great starting point, or reach out directly to the tech transfer or research offices of Canadian universities and colleges. Thank you so much for joining me.